Hello, good morning. Today, what are we doing? More of these guys here. All right, we're going to be doing this second part sheet, numbers 9 through 12 today. I've already planned it out, what I want to say already, mainly because I've made all those construction boxes, I've counted all the little squares, and I know exactly what I want to do and what the sizes of everything are ahead of time, so I can get through this really quickly and efficiently. So, we're going to start working with some curves and some fillets and center points. So let's talk about some of that stuff. So let me share my screen here and open up Inventor. Here we go. So we start off with a new part here. And like I've been doing all along, make sure you have your ribbon bar intact using this little tab there. Make sure you have your browser, remember view, user interface, browser, make sure that is checked. I'll go back to 3D model. All right, and just so we're all set up, we can run through this pretty simply and quickly. So again, we're going to start a 2D sketch. Make sure we're starting this on the XY plane. We're going to start with a 2-point rectangle, and we're going to start that on the origin, positive X, positive Y. We're just dragging, don't click. And we're going to find the overall size of this first part, which is part 9 here, and that's going to be 9 tab 6 enter. Home key on the keyboard so I can see what I've done. Okay. All right, well that one's pretty good. So let's just go ahead and extrude this. So I'm going to finish my sketch. Maybe I'll try that home key there just to show you that brings it into an isometric. I'm going to extrude, and I want to extrude this one 4. Enter. All right, so what do I want to do next? Well, the first thing that I want to do is I want to come over here. I want to place a new sketch by right-clicking, new sketch. There's a home key on the keyboard so I can see what's going on. And I want to cut out a circle starting from this center point. So I just go to the center point circle tool, which is right here. It should be the default. Make sure I start on this corner, and I start dragging this down. I can select the diameter. Okay, so what does this diameter need to be? Well, this diameter needs to be 6. So 6, enter. How do I know that? Well, I know on this part that I need to cut a nice even circle out of here that is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That 3 is a radius, therefore diameter is always double my radius. So I can finish my sketch, can extrude, I want to cut. All right, and there we go. All right, so that's how I cut in a circle. But how do I do one that's kind of rounded over and still tangent? Well, there's a little cheat for that. All we have to do is add a fillet. All right, a fillet. So here's your fillet tool. If you leave your mouse there for a second, it shows you how I can fillet around corners. Or I can just go over to an edge, and I can right-click on it, and it'll give me an option to fillet because it's a common thing to do. And here we're actually looking at the radius of this fillet. Okay, so the radius of this fillet, you can tell the radius of the fillet by looking in your paper and seeing where the center point is. So the radius of this fillet is 2. All right, and then hit this little check mark, and there's our part done. All right, pretty simple. And we have a center point of that radius, which is 2. All right, so why don't you go ahead and save that. Remember, try to save these all to a folder with the standard naming convention. That way we can find everything. Remember, if you name everything part 1, you're just going to keep saving over everything. So make sure you name them with some sort of naming convention that makes sense. All right, let's move on to the next one here. I'm going to grab a new part. Grab a 2D sketch, XY plane, 2-point rectangle. Start at the origin. Drag up positive X, positive Y. This one starts off with 10, tab, 6, enter. Home. And just like we did before with the circle, I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm actually going to do a very similar thing, but in 2 dimensions. So I'm going to grab my center point circle tool here. I'm going to get all the way till this turns green. See how that turns green there in the center? That means I'm snapped to the center point itself, which is what I want. All right, so I'm going to click and start dragging down. And the radius here, all right, that I want is I want a radius of 3. All right, which means my overall diameter then is going to be 6. So 6, enter, home so I can see what's going on. And I only really want to extrude this part here. So in order not to confuse the program, what I can do is I can actually trim parts that I don't want. And you see there's the trim tool right there. You see how that works. It just kind of trims off the excess. And now I have the exact shape that I want. So I'm going to finish the sketch, home key on your keyboard, and just extrude that to the distance that I want, which is 4. Enter, home. There we go. All right, that one was pretty simple. So I did all that in one step. All right, well, let's try something a little different. All right, so make sure, again, save it. Make sure you save it in the correct spot. Make sure you know where you're saving your parts. Grab a new part. New 2D sketch. XY plane. 2-point rectangle. Starting at the origin. Positive X, positive Y. And we're looking for the overall right here. So the overall here is, well, let's do this. Let's make this one, this is going to be 11, tab 2, enter. I'll head home. So I'm making the long piece at the bottom. Then I'll just grab another rectangle to kind of square off this shape. And I will add in a square right here that is 4, tab 4, enter. Home. Right? And so you see what I've done is I've just taken this rounded off shape and I've just blocked it out. So I'm going to finish this sketch. I'm going to hit the home key so I can see everything. Now I want to extrude, make sure I have the profile here, and I want to select 1, 2, both profiles, and I want to extrude both of those a distance, okay, of 4. Okay, so I'm going to do something a little fancy here. If this is 4 across here, all right, and I want to make this a perfect circle around, okay, that means its diameter of this half circle that gets rounded off right here is going to be 4. However, the fillet uses a radius, right? So if I take 2 fillets, each with a radius of 2, all right, 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? Or 2 radii equals a diameter. Oh, check that out. You know what else is kind of neat? Since this distance here that I also need to round off is also 4, I'm just going to double click this fillet. And I'm going to select edges here. And I'm just going to select 1, 2 more edges. Click OK. All right. Kind of neat, right? Something else I can show you here is if I right click and add a new sketch to this surface and I press the home key on the keyboard so it squares it up nice and square with me, and I want to cut a little hole out of here, all right? And that hole is going to have a diameter of 2. Since I have 2 fillets that both have the same center point, the computer's pretty smart, all right? It can actually give me the center point where to stick this. Well, if I look on here, I'm looking for this little thing. It's like a little point. Okay, see this center point? And what this center point does is it allows me to place this center point here. I could do that. Or as an alternative, because I'm going to have to dimension that, what happens if I project that geometry? And now I grab my center point circle. Can you notice that we already have a center point here because I already projected that geometry? It's really light yellow. I don't know if you can see that on your screen. But I actually can snap to that now without having to measure anything. Remember, that was a diameter of 2 that I wanted. And there we go. So I can go ahead and finish that sketch. I can extrude. I can cut. It's already set up as 4 because that's what I used last time. And I can click OK. All right. We're almost done. What else do we have to do? Well, let's go over here, put a new sketch on this surface. Hit home. And I'm going to try to use the same geometry. So again, I'm going to project the geometry of this. And you can see the center point show up, which is kind of cool. All right. So now we have a slot, okay? When you see like a rectangle with rounded edges, that's called a slot. Now, there are two different ways we could do that. We can make a rectangle and we can fill at the corners, which we could, or we can actually grab the slot tool, all right? And what I want is center to center, all right, this slot, because I know there's going to be 2 center points, all right? So I'm going to start at this center point. It's going to ask me how far is it from center point to center point, okay? And that's going to be 3, all right? And now, after I make sure it's 90 degrees, it's going to say, well, how wide is this? And if I look on my paper, that is 2 wide, 2, enter. And it comes up with all these different geometric constraints that you don't have to worry about doing yourself, such as parallel here, right? There you go, tangent, circle edges. So you can actually take a look at these. And these symbols down here are all the same as symbols up here. And you can mouse over and see exactly what they are and what they do. All right. And if you want, you can actually go in and modify them by hitting escape. And then you can actually go through and click on them. But we're not going to do that. I'm just going to finish my sketch. Extrude. And I'm just going to cut, click OK, and our part is done. Nice and simple. All right, nice and simple. Let's go ahead and save that. So let's move on to the last one we're going to do. This last one we're going to do, I'm going to go to New Part. I'm going to make it the same way. All right, I'm going to use the same method here. So 2D sketch, XY plane. Oh no, look, my 2-point rectangle is gone. So I clicked on a slot. So make sure I go back to my 2-point rectangle. Notice there's a bunch of different ways to make a rectangle. Grab the 2-point rectangle. Start in the origin, drag up positive X, positive Y. And this one I want 12 tab 2, enter. 12 tab 2, enter. So 12 by 2. Next, all right, what I want is I want to have another square here that is going to be 4 by 4. So I'm going to start dragging a square somewhere in the center. It's not going to be exactly, so I don't have to dimension it. 4 tab 4, enter. Home. And I need this to be in the center of this geometry. And there's a few ways to do it. The easiest way is going to be just say that from here to there needs to be 4. Remember our math, 4 plus 4. Oh, and there's 12 here, right? So this is 8. 8 here. 12 minus 8 is 4. So this remainder area from here to here is automatically going to be 4. And again, remember, we can test that by just clicking here. Here, we should get an error. All right, adding this dimension will over-constrain the sketch. Choose to accept a driven constraint, which puts it in parentheses. All right, so our math is correct, so we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this, hit home, extrude, select both profiles, make sure that this is extruded 4. All right, and again, since we have 4 and 4 here, we're just going to fill it. And I'm going to fillet all of these edges. This one, this one. I'm going to make sure I have a radius of 2. This one, this one, this one. And I'm going to rotate my view cube. Make sure I grab the correct line and that one. All in one step. And they're all a radius of 2. I'll go back to my standard isometric view. And now I just have to drill some holes. And again, these holes are going to be concentric, okay? Concentric, meaning that they have the same center point. So it's pretty simple. I'm going to start a new 2D sketch. I'm going to hit home. And because it's easy this way, I'm going to project that geometry. I'm going to project this geometry. And I can do this because these two surfaces are on the same plane, all right? They're coplanar. And then I'm just going to grab my circle tool, put that right on the center point again, 2, enter, right here, dragging out, 2, enter, escape. There we go. Finish that sketch. Extrude, profiles, that circle, and cut them. Click OK. All right, pretty simple. Now let's go in here. I'm going to put a new sketch here and do the same thing. Home, project geometry, project just that curve so I get the center point, go to my circle, overlap my center point so they're concentric, 2, enter, and finish the sketch. And here I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to cut. All right, cut. Okay, and there we go. We're all finished up. Alrighty, so this time we were really focused in on circles, center points, and fillets. All right, and then from now we're going to be using those sort of techniques next video and the next set as well before we get into anything much more complicated. So again, if you have any questions, you can let me know. Otherwise, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.